To financial planning. My name is Sean. I'm a junior at Montgomery High. I'm in Filipino 3-4. Um, before we begin, I would like to remind attendees to mute their microphones, and I would like you to introduce the session's Elizabeth Luancin Garcia.
All right, very good. Thanks, Sean. Just one more sound check. Can everyone hear me okay? You can put in the chat that you can hear me. I just want to make sure the sound is good. Okay, thank you, Dylan, for checking in. All right, so again, I'm Miss Loancin Garcia. I'm a counselor at Sweetwater High School. I'm a graduate of Sweetwater High School. I went to school, elementary school, middle school, high school, all throughout National City. After Sweetwater High School, I went to San Diego State University to study communication. Then I was an English teacher for a little bit. And then while I was teaching, I continued to go to school to get my master's degree. And now I am a counselor at Sweetwater High School. And so I'm glad to be here with you all today. I have lots of information to share with you. So if you want to write stuff down, take screenshots or what have you, it'll be very beneficial to you. All right, so I'm managing the chat and the admitting people into the room. So if I have to stop every once in a while just to check the background here, please be patient with me. So Sean did put an attendance sheet into the chat. So those of you who are students, you want to make sure that you fill out the attendance sheet so then you get credit for joining us today. Okay, so make sure you fill out the sign-in sheet. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the difference between financial aid and scholarships. So our presentation today is going to revolve around you needing money for college, okay? And so we're gonna kind of follow this format. So everyone needs money for college, everybody does. And so there's two different ways to get money to go to college, okay? One of which is financial aid, and we'll talk about financial aid in detail. And then there's scholarships is the second part, okay? And so I'm gonna explain the difference between the two, give you some details about the two, and then at the end, I can entertain any questions that you all might have. So grants, loans, and work study is what we call financial aid, okay? Anytime you apply to a college or university, and I will talk about how to apply for financial aid, there are three types of money you can get. You can get grants, which is free money. It's money you don't have to pay back. Then there's loans, which is money that you borrow and that you have to pay back. And then there's work study, which is like you work at the bookstore or the library, and part of the money that you make goes towards your tuition for the school. So through financial aid, there are three types of money you get: grants, loans, and work study. Okay. Now, aside from financial aid, there are scholarships. So scholarships are separate from your financial aid that you may get from the universities or colleges that you go to. And so we'll explain how to apply for scholarships. So the process to apply for grants, loans, and work study is different than the process that you would have to apply for scholarships. So let's start with financial aid, then we'll talk about scholarships. So in order to apply for financial aid, there are two different websites that you would use, okay? There is the FAFSA, which is called the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, and that's the website there. So the FAFSA is what students with Social Security numbers will use, okay? The FAFSA process is for legal residents that have a Social Security number. Now, if you don't have a social security number, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not going to qualify for financial aid. It just means it's a different application you're going to fill out. Okay, so if you are a student that does not have a social security number, you will fill out the California Dream Act application. Okay, it'll go through the same process. You'll still be eligible for those different types of aid that I talked about, but it just means you're going to fill out a different application. Okay, so every student will either fill out the FAFSA or the Dream Act application. So as a student, when it gets to senior year, you need to tell yourself, okay, I need to fill out the FAFSA, or you need to fill out the California Dream Act. You need to take note of which one it is that you need to fill out. So again, there are the three types of aid. So I mentioned this several times in our presentation because I want to make sure you understand that these are the types of aid you're going to get. Okay, grants, loans, and work study. How much of each one will completely depend on your family's financial situation. So depending on what your family income looks like, whether they own property or not, whether they have investments or not, will determine how much grants, loans, and work study you're going to get. And I'm going to show you some examples of what that looks like in a little bit. So the FAFSA and the California Dream Act opens in October every year. Okay, and the deadline is March 2nd. So it is a very big window of time to fill out the FAFSA, but the sooner you do it, the better. Okay. And again, this happens senior year. So I know for some of you that are here, you may be underclassmen. So just remember that this is a process that you will complete your senior year. Okay. All right. So again, it's one application that you'll fill out for all these three different types of aid: grants, loans, and work study. So how do you become eligible for financial aid? Okay, so eligibility for grants, loans, and work study will be determined by the information that you put on your FAFSA or your California Dream Act application. Okay. When you complete the FAFSA and the California Dream Act, those applications will come up with a number, and it's called the Expected Family Contribution, EFC. So as you complete the FAFSA during your senior year, you'll hear universities and maybe even your counselors talk about what we call an EFC, Expected Family Contribution. Okay, and what that is, it's a measure of your family's financial strength and the amount of money your family will be able to contribute towards your education, towards your college education. Okay, so some families' expected family contribution is 0. That means because of their financial situation, they are unable to contribute any money to you as a student to go to college. Okay, some families' EFC is very large because they have a high income, they have lots of assets, they have money in the bank. So the FAFSA and the California Dream Act thinks that family has more money, so they can contribute more to their child's college education. But the only way you will know your EFC is by filling out the FAFSA or the California Dream Act. So it's very important that you do fill out those applications so your universities will know what your EFC is, and they'll know how much financial aid you need. And that's how they will determine how much financial aid they will offer you. Okay, so in addition to that, remember, scholarships are separate. Okay, there are thousands of scholarships out there. We'll talk about that in a second. But in addition to grants, loans, and work study, there are scholarships as well. And remember, that is separate. That's different. That's a different process. All right, so the documents you need to fill out your FAFSA or your California Dream Act. Okay, if you do have your social security number, you need that, and your parents if they have it. Okay, so you need your social security numbers. Some families might not have a social security number, but they'll have what you call an ITIN number. If you mention that to your parents, if they have one, they'll know what you're talking about. Okay, if they don't have one, then they won't know. But if your parents don't have a social security number, but they do have an ITIN number, you can use that one too. Like I said, if you mention that to your parents, you're like, Mom, Dad, you have social security number? And they said, oh, no, anak, I don't have one. You'd be like, oh, but what about an ITIN? Do you have an ITIN number? And they're like, oh yeah, anak, I have that one. Okay, so you can use that too. All right. If your parents or if you filed your income tax return, you'll need that info, okay? And it always goes like 2 years back. So for seniors this year, if you're filing your FAFSA, you're gonna use your 2020 federal income tax returns. And along with your parents' tax forms or your tax forms, all the documents that come along with it. So if you tell your parents, Mom, Dad, I need your 2020 tax returns, they'll probably give you a folder with a bunch of papers stapled to it. That's what you'll need. Okay. And again, your counselors can help you through this process. Any bank statements or investment records, anything that shows your parents money that they have saved, any investments that they have, any money that's sitting in a bank somewhere, you'll need those numbers. And if you do have the actual bank statements, that would be good. And any other income that your parents have. So if they have a business, if they have a farm, if they have like rental property, you'll need all of those records of that too. Okay. And there is a thing called an FSA ID. It's kind of like your login to the whole FAFSA process. And so when you access the FAFSA application, it's going to be one of the first things they ask you to do is to create an FSA ID. And I think I talk about that in a little bit too. All right, so you're like, all right, FAFSA. So how do I get started with filling this thing out? So one of the easiest ways to get started to kind of start collecting some of the information that you need is to do the FAFSA worksheet. And instead of me giving you this long link or a link in the chat, if you just Google FAFSA worksheet, one of the first ones that pop up are the actual FAFSA worksheets from the .gov. Okay, so when it comes to doing anything FAFSA, make sure it's always got that .gov at the end. That's government. Okay, that's the official website. Because there are some other FAFSA websites out there that will ask for money. They'll say, hey, I'll fill out your FAFSA for you if you pay $79.95. And you're like, oh, cool, okay. And you pay the $75.95. You don't have to do that. Okay, there's some organizations, some websites out there that are going to try and make money off of you. There is no fee to fill out the FAFSA. So please do not go to those websites. So if it's asking you for money, that's not a real website. Don't do it. Don't do it. Again, if you receive like letters in the mail or emails saying, hey, I'll fill out your FAFSA for you, I guarantee you'll receive financial aid, those types of things, you might want to swing it by your counselor. Just say, hey, counselor, I got this email or I got this letter in the mail and it's saying that I'm guaranteed money for college if I pay $49.95. Show your counselor just to make sure you're in the right, that you've got the right information, because you don't want to fall for a scam, because that's happened before. So again, we talked about the FSA ID. So if you're a senior and you have not yet started this FAFSA process, you want to go to this website here and create your FSA ID. Okay, this is your official login for the FAFSA process. It does require your social security number. So you will have to create an FSA ID for yourself and your parents. Okay, so whose ever financial information you're gonna put on the FAFSA, you wanna make sure they have an FSA ID also. Now, if you have a kuya or an ate who's in college, your parents probably already have an FSA ID. So they don't need to create a new one for you. You're gonna use the same FSA ID for your parents that ate and kuya used. Okay, so if your parents will probably say, you say, Mom, I need your FSA ID. What's gonna be their answer most likely? I don't know what that is. I don't remember what that is. Because that's my parents. Mom, what's your login? I don't know, I don't remember. Okay, so ask your ate. Ask your kuya because they probably have it written down somewhere what this FSAID is. Okay. Um, a trick that I've told students, and I'm sure many of you have tips and tricks on how to save your passwords. Um, as you approach senior year, there are lots of passwords and logins and access code and all these things that are going to happen for you senior year, not only with the financial aid process, but also with your college applications. So what I recommend is in your phone under contacts, you create like a FAFSA contact. You create a UCLA contact. You create, whatever. And under that contact, you put in the email, you put in the phone number, and in the notes, you put in all of the codes, access codes, passwords, usernames, and things in the notes of that contact. So then if you ever forget, you can go back and check your contact and all of your details are there. Now, it might not be the most secure place to put it, but for me, it works. And for many of my students, it works. So just make sure you have a lock, security lock and stuff on your phone in case you lose it or whatever. But that's my trick to save all of your passwords and things for very important websites that you will access senior years, to create a contact for each of these different things that you'll need to save your username and passwords for. All right. So financial aid, the different types of financial aid can be used at not only four-year universities. Okay, some people think, oh, I'm not going to do the FAFSA because I'm not going to a four-year university. No, pretty much any type of school you plan on going to after high school will take your FAFSA. Okay, so even if it's a trade school, a training school, a school where you'll be getting a certificate instead of a degree, many of those schools still take the FAFSA, and the California Dream Act. So make sure that you still fill it out, even if you're going to a trade school, a training school, a vocational school, or a community college, because most of those schools, if they're legit, take the FAFSA and the California Dream Act also. And again, with anything that we're talking about here, students and parents, at any point, if you're unsure or need a further explanation, you can always reach out to your school counselor at your high school and ask more in detail. They can even sit with you as you fill out the FAFSA to make sure that you're filling it out correctly. They'll even do that with you. So again, at any point where you're listening to me today and you feel like you need to go over it again, or if you have some questions, I mean, you're more than welcome to reach out to me if you would like, and my contact info will be at the end. But you can definitely reach out to your school counselor at your high school, and they can walk you through any part of any of what I'm talking about, and they're more than happy to help you through that process. So at the bottom of this slide, I give you another .gov website where you can learn more about the costs associated to any of the schools that you're planning on going to or that you're interested in applying to. So what this website does, so I looked up a technical school, a training school, Universal Technical Institute of California, okay? And here you'll notice there's all kinds of information about the school, but then it gives you the cost, okay? How much does it cost to go to that school? It'll also tell you what percentage of students get admitted, what are their average graduation rates, and so it'll help you be a little bit more informed about the schools that you're interested in and the schools that you plan on applying to. So senior year, again, just as a repeat and a reminder, senior year is when you fill out the FAFSA and the California Dream Act. Okay, so that's senior year. But scholarships can be for anyone at any time, all year long. Okay, so now we're going to transition a little bit towards how financial aid works. Okay, so here's an example. I'm going to give you a few examples of some students and how the money works out and how does financial aid pay for everything. So I wanted to give you a few examples because this is exactly what you're going to face when you receive your financial aid award letter, and I want you to be informed on how the money works out when it comes to financial aid. Okay, so this is an example. So let's say this student got admitted to San Diego State University. Okay, and this student is going to be living at home. They're living at home. And on the left side here shows you how much it costs to go to San Diego State. See that total at the bottom? It says in 1 year to go to San Diego State, they say the total is $31,484. And then when your parents see that, they're like, ay, nako anak, that's a lot of money. You cannot afford to go to college. Okay, it is a lot of money. Okay, and that big number can be scary. But see what I circled in yellow? Okay, that is at the basic level, being a student in San Diego, assuming you're probably going to try and live at home. That circled number is the basic number you need to start attending classes. Okay, so when you're looking at your financial aid package, you want to look where it says basic tuition and fees, because at the very least, that's what you need to start attending classes. Now, I realize some schools require students to live on campus for the first year, and so that's something that you'll need to consider too. But just for this example, I'm just going to look at basic tuition and fees, assuming you're going to live at home because you're from San Diego County anyway, right? We're close enough to San Diego State where you can commute. Okay, so on the right side, let's look at student number 1. All right, so they had an expected family contribution of $1,500. Okay, again, so what an EFC, expected family contribution. So the family filled out the FAFSA, and based on the information you put on the FAFSA, they said, okay, the family, you make enough money that we believe you can pay $1,500 every year towards your child's education. Okay, then the FAFSA said, okay, and we're going to give you $3,500 grants. Remember, grants is free money. Okay, that's free money. You don't have to pay that back. And we're going to give you $750 work study. Okay, you're going to get a job at the library. You'll work a few hours a week, and some of that money you make is going to go towards your tuition, work study. Okay, again, it's money you work for. You don't have to pay back. And we're going to give you $2,386 loans. Okay, which ends up being a total of $8,136 basic tuition and fees. Okay, that's kind of how you want to look at it. So with student number 1, the family's going to have to contribute a little bit for student number 1 to attend San Diego State University. Okay, now let's look at student number 2. Student number 2's family filled out the FAFSA, and their EFC was 0. Okay, maybe parents lost a job during COVID, maybe one was a stay-at-home mom, and so their income is very low. So based on the info that they put on the FAFSA, their expected family contribution, EFC, is 0. Okay, and for me, many of the students that I work with, their expected family contribution is very low. I've seen 0 many times. So when you see EFC 0 at the end of your FAFSA, that's a good sign. Okay, now student number 2 is getting $6,500 of grants. Okay, free money. So they're getting a lot of free money. So again, because they're low income, the family knows that the FAFSA knows the family needs help to support the student to go to school. They got $1,636 in work study and 0 loans. Again, the total $8,136 basic tuition and fees. Okay, so again, this is an example of what it's going to look like once you get admitted to a university, and then what the financial aid award letter will look like. So then you can kind of see how the numbers play out. So this is an example. Here's another example of a student who is going to UCLA. Okay, UC schools are a little bit more expensive. Okay, so because this is in LA, the student needs to live on campus, right? So see my yellow circles there are a little bit different this time. I added room and meals this time because the student will be living at UCSD. So not only do they need to be in the classroom, so they need their tuition and fees, they're going to need a roof over their heads and food in their stomachs. Okay, so for this student, instead of that total 36,297, at the bare minimum, this student will need tuition fees, room and meals, which is approximately $30,000. Okay. So again, see the two students, same student number one, 1,500 EFC. See how the grants, work study, and loans kind of are there to total that 30,021. Again, look at student number two with the 0 EFC, grants, work study, loans, total $30,000, $30,021. So that's how that works out. So you will always receive financial aid is the important part of this story of student number one and student number two, okay? You will always receive financial aid, but it'll be a combination of grants, work study, and loans, okay? Some students get very small grants and all loans, okay? So when families say, oh, we didn't get any financial aid. No, you did get financial aid. It just wasn't all grants. Some of it was loans and work study. Okay, so you will get financial aid. It just might not be all free money. And so if we have some parents here in the room, that might be something you might want to start thinking about, is if that happens to you where your student is offered more loans than grants and work study, are you comfortable with that? Okay, do you feel like your child is worth that investment of those loans? Because loans are an investment. Okay, you buy a car, most people take a loan. You buy a house, most people take a loan. Now, this is your child's education. This is their future. Are they worth that investment of that loan? And that is a conversation you have to have with your child, that it is an investment and you're going to have to pay it back, and whether they're ready or not to move to UCLA. Are they ready to take on that rigor of study at that university? That it's worth taking out that much loans to support your child through this investment. And that's usually the approach I take with parents when they get really anxious about loans, is whether or not they're ready to make that investment. If you can buy a car and take a loan out, if you can buy your house and take a loan out, this is your child's future and it's an investment. Is it worth it or not? Now, some students are not ready. They're unsure, they're still hesitant about the whole college process. They're not sure what they want to study yet. Maybe their grades in high school were still a little iffy. Then maybe they're not ready for that investment yet. Maybe they should go to community college first, strengthen their academic skills, and then take that investment 2 years later and go to the university. But those are all individual conversations. Those are all individual choices. And so those are things that your school counselor can help you talk you through that whole process, because it can get scary, especially when you're looking at numbers like this. $30,000, that's a lot of money. So yeah, your counselor can talk you through this process if you need it. Okay, so speaking of an investment, so this is just to kind of put it into perspective. So the cost of attendance at UCLA for 4 years is over $120,000. So if you take that 30,000 times 4, it's $120,000. Okay, now student number two, for example, the loans, if you took those loans out for 4 years, that's $20,000. So you're getting $120,000 education for out of your pocket. Loans would be $20,000. So sometimes you have to kind of look at it through that lens too. Like, what is the value of education I'm getting versus what I'm actually paying out of my pocket to make this happen? So again, at UCLA, for student number two example, that's $120,000 value education that you're gonna pay only $20,000 for through your loans. So that's another way to kind of look at this whole process when it comes to paying for a college education. Okay, we've got a few more minutes, so let me kind of breeze through this a little bit. So here is a student where all of their costs are covered, for example. Okay, no EFC, no loans, everything's grants and work study. This happens too. Okay. So scholarships Scholarships is a little bit simpler than the FAFSA California Dream Act financial aid process. So what is a benefit to applying to scholarships? Obviously, financial support, you're going to get money to go to college, and scholarships you do not pay back. Okay. Many scholarships need you to demonstrate academic achievement. So you need to have good grades, okay, decent grades. And it's good if you stand out amongst your peers in some way or another. Okay. Funding college can be stressful. And so part of what the scholarship process is to help alleviate some of that stress in regards to costs to go to college. So what type of scholarships are out there? There's scholarships for community service. There's scholarships to specific colleges and majors or fields of study. Some parents, some of your employers offer scholarships for your children. So that's a great way to earn some scholarships as well. And there are some scholarships through the military also. So I know some students pursue the military, they commit a few years to the military, so then they can secure the GI Bill or some other type of scholarships, or even if your parents have served in the military or are serving in the military, there are some scholarships available for dependents also. So there are all kinds of different scholarships out there. Here are some of the examples of some of the scholarships in our area, in our Sweetwater district, who have been generous to our students and who award scholarships to our students every year. You can Google any of these. San Diego Foundation is a huge one. Kiwanis Club, Women's Club, Elks Lodge, Chelsea Light Foundation. Big organizations like Ford, Ronald McDonald, Prudential, the insurance company. Our students in the Sweetwater district have received scholarships from these companies every year. And so those are things to kind of look into. So where can you find scholarships? Each high school in the Sweetwater district has a scholarship counselor. Okay, I don't know how many of our students here know that, but every high school in our Sweetwater district has a scholarship counselor. Seek that person out. Okay. That person will either have a bulletin board or a website or a newsletter or an email that goes out every once in a while. Find out what the process is and make sure you get on that email list. Make sure you go visit that bulletin board or that website at least every 2 weeks, maybe 2 times a month. Once a week would be good if you visit that list of scholarships, because scholarships come up all the time. Like, at least for me, I know sometimes we get a scholarship one day and it's due a week and a half later. So if you're only checking that list every 2 weeks, then you would have missed it, right? So seek out who your scholarship counselor is at your high school. Here, I know this is a little overwhelming, but take a screenshot if you need to. Here are some of the more popular scholarship websites that I've used, that I like, that are big databases of scholarships. So visit some of these, those will be helpful to you. And again, your specific scholarship counselor at your school will probably have a list similar to this as well. So tips for completing your scholarship: start now. Okay, try and personalize the essays that they ask you for that particular scholarship. Don't be too generic. I know some of you will use the same essay over and over again for all scholarships and then not tailor the scholarship, your essay to that particular scholarship. So make sure you edit it a little bit and personalize it. If you haven't Googled yourself yet, you should, and make sure that you have a professional online profile. I've sat in on admissions presentations from college admissions people, and they do Google you. I used to read for UCSD, and I'll tell you, I've Googled some kids based on what they wrote in their essays and stuff. So make sure you have a decent online presence. And make sure you have somebody proofread your essays and stuff for the scholarships. Okay, always have somebody look it over before you submit. Okay. What do scholarships look for? So I know we're almost done, so I'm just trying to get through very quickly. What are scholarship judges looking for in your application? Of course, good grades, good citizenship, leadership, involvement, all of those fun things. So if you're an underclassman, get involved on campus, start uh, owning some leadership positions in some of these clubs, because that's going to definitely help you. After you win a scholarship, send a thank you note, please. Okay, send a thank you note, send an email back. Remember, money does not have to be paid back. You might be asked to attend an award ceremony. The check might actually be given to you in person. It might be mailed to you. It might be sent directly to your college or university. So like I said, scholarships are all very different. They all function very differently depending on which scholarship it is that you've applied to and that you've won. So we mentioned before, beware of scams. Okay, when they ask for a fee, all scholarships should be free. So there's no reason why they should ask you for a fee. If they guarantee that you're going to have a certain amount of money, all this stuff, be careful with what you're applying to. And again, if it looks shady, swing it by your counselor. We can help check and make sure it's good for you. Okay. Again, some samples, what those look like. Okay, so remember, the more scholarships you apply for, the better your chances are of winning. So the more you put it out there, the more you apply, the better your chances. So this is what we talked about. We talked about a lot of things. So much so, we went over time a little bit. So I'm Miss Luan Singh. This is my info. I'm at Sweetwater High. Or you can contact your specific counselor at your high school, and they can give you and guide you and give you the attention and individual help that you need to complete the financial aid and scholarship process. So thank you, everyone. Don't forget to do the sign-in sheet, please. It's in the chat.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Sean.
All right. I just want to thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to like talk to us. Like, I think you really helped like some of the students. And yeah, as again for attendees that joined, please refer to the Magkaisa 2021 tiny URL link like for the next session.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sean. Enjoy the rest of the conference, everyone.